welcome to Voices of Endpoint. It's really a pleasure to have you here. Why don't you tell us your journey on how you got to Endpoint? Maybe, or what did you do before you got to Endpoint?
Sure, it's a good question. I'll start with what I say often, which is my very first job many years ago was programming IRT. I sort of fell into the industry working for our fearless Jennifer at Parexel. So my first proper role in the industry was developing IRT, and I appear to have not left. So I spent about 10 years working on the clinical technology vendor side of things, spent about the same number of years as a client. Um, and after that, I had the opportunity to start up an IRT or RTSM organization. And then after a couple stints working in biotech and being a buyer of RTSM and clinical technology, I came back here to be part of sort of the next stage of things at Endpoint.
Wonderful. Glad to have you here. Tell us a
Thanks.
little bit about your role at Endpoint and what is a day in a life of Christine Hurley?
Sure. So my title, this is a great question. How much time do you have? So my title is Vice President of Technical Operations. So we have our core products, and we have Fiona, one of my colleagues' team is our client-facing team, which has our account managers and project managers who work with our customers to gather requirements for their study-specific applications for RTSM. And in my team, I describe briefly as the configurers, coders, and testers. So we have a couple hundred folks globally, and this is the team that will configure the applications, will write the code that's required, and then of course run through the validation and really lead the validation deliverables for the applications. So that over the last year or so, our team has also been really focused in gearing up and implementing more in terms of automation AI. So over the last year or so, we've built out our subject matter experts in the areas of AI and automation to add to the team and work with us as we move through implementing those things. But yeah, it's sort of the technical side of the delivery house, I guess I would say.
That's wonderful. Going back to that, what kind of positive and challenges do you face in the day of this particular group?
Positive, the good and the bad, right? I think what I love about what we do is why we're doing it. It's the context of it, right? Like just I think that's sort of why I fell in love with this kind of technology in the first place was it wasn't just coding, it was coding to help discover new treatments and new medicines. So what we do and why we do it is purpose driven, I guess. So the real positives about the team is I have a team that is incredibly purpose driven. They're very accountable. They love what they do and they're proud to be doing something meaningful in the world, right? I think the challenges are what you would expect, right? We have a lot of work. We have lots of clients. The systems that we're delivering are often, critical path in terms of we've got to get our systems up to support first patient enrolled for our clients, which is always a critical milestone for them. So there's a lot of pressure to do things on time and also do things with excellent quality. So a lot of what I spend my day doing is, supporting the team, prioritizing if we need to, scheduling. We have a number of forums around reviewing metrics and looking at quality. So a lot of my day is really spent overseeing the delivery of our systems, and making sure we're getting both those things right, the time and the quality, which it's not a novel challenge, right? I think probably lots of people would say that is it. But I think for us in our TSM, it's especially true given the criticality of the system. So I think that's the good and the bad. It matters and we feel really tied to the purpose, and it's hard. There's high
Yeah.
expectations for what we do. We have to do incredibly well.
Now, you talked about the classic challenge. You have to deliver on high quality, you have
Right.
time pressures, and you've been doing this from the sponsor side, the vendor side.
Mhm.
What is today different? Is there tools and capabilities for you to do this things different, or is it the same across the board as you're starting to do RTS and technical delivery? As you stand today, what are you seeing? Is it the same? Is it different? What are you seeing in the landscape?
It's different now from when I started, you're saying? Well, it's funny because when I started, we would, put in the actual mail through the postal service, user IDs and passwords and separate envelopes. So I'm going to age myself when I talk about what's different. But I think two things come to mind when you ask me outside of that major difference is I think, you know, I'm not, I'll get a little bit out of my technical depth when I talk about this, but when I think about, working at an organization 10 years ago and building a product from scratch and like what we're doing now and been doing with Velocity over the last couple of years, the biggest difference I see is just sort of speed, processing, and architecture, right? So what we're able to do now in terms of like, let's say, audit trails, right? So that's something that our customers have a required, they're required to, um, review audit trails and do that in a way that they can really discern answers in the data that and really consume it, right? And 10 years ago, even with the latest and greatest technology, it was sort of impossible to manage that data and to interpret it and to look at it in a way that you could ask questions and get answers to those questions. So from a technology standpoint, and I couldn't tell you all the tools and the why, but just the processing and the access to data and where AI has come in for us, particularly with Velocity, that jumps out at me. Um, and then continuing on with that, I think what I've learned a lot in the last year and a half about is what we're doing in terms of how we deliver and where automation can really improve the way that we're working, not just for our clients in terms of we'll deliver things faster, but for our teams in terms of eliminating manual steps, eliminating, data entry and finding ways to move faster through the delivery. I think I've really, having been a few years out on the client side, coming back to Endpoint and really digging into that has been really exciting for me and new, right? So I think that those are the two things. I think the architecture piece and the data access that I'm seeing with Velocity, yes. And then not just seeing, but for sort of having oversight of teams that are starting to really change delivery with automation is pretty exciting and I couldn't even imagine that 20 years ago.
Yeah, and Christian, that's a great point you're making. Automation is helping you remove manual work and going
Mhm.
back to your trifecta of quality, speed, and trying to deliver it on time and budget. Tell me a little bit. The automation journey is not easy. It's not for the faint-hearted. People
Yeah.
go through that, and there's a lot of change management involved in it. Talk me through how do you get automation going in a company like this, which is so used to
Yeah.
doing things in an older way, and now you're trying to bring in new ideas. Walk me
Yeah.
through that. What did you
Oh,
find? What resistance did you have, and how did you mitigate that?
yeah. I think with any change management thing or initiative, you want people to just trust it will make things better. And I find that showing as you go along the way, the impact of these things is a big piece in getting people excited and getting on the journey. For us with automation and AI, the last year, we looked at three areas in technical operations. We looked at configuring, coding, and testing. And for me, as a person that has worked in operations and delivery, but not in automation, I learned a lot, right? And so I think you certainly need to start out with the right experts, which we have with Arvind, which is amazing. But what we had to look at across these things is what is the current work that we're doing? How is this process that we're looking at automating governed? We work in a regulated high verification environment. Anything we do, we have to do with the right controls and it has to, pass an audit. So, we started with socializing the idea and what we thought we could do and what we would explore. We structured it in a way of having a proof of concept, which is saying, okay, these are these three areas that we think automation and AI can bring some value to us. So we're going to send some folks away. We're going to send some new experts that we brought in, and we're going to bring some of our experts in our domain, and we're going to have them go off and work on these two projects and say, what can we get from this? Is there something here? Is there value in this? And then if there is, what would it take to actually do it? So you sort of go away for a few months and you say, let's explore this. And so we did that in those three areas. And that effort and having a team, a cross-functional team of what I would say is new and old. We brought in some new folks with technical expertise and we partnered them with people on our team that know our business inside and out. And that, you start with your champions, you start with people that are excited about it, and that starts to build some momentum. So having a time to sort of explore it was really valuable. And coming out of that, we shared with the team, hey, here's what we've learned. And we got to share some surprises about where we saw some success that I certainly was surprised about. And then we did a lot of work to just share with the team and certainly with leadership about, okay, here's the things that we can do, here's the benefit we see, here's what we think it's going to bring us in terms of improving quality or improving capacity, ultimately looking at optimizing cost. And then you say, okay, well, let's try it. So we went from sort of proving it out, almost like an exploring, that's like in a laboratory. And then you say, okay, let's give it a go and let's work through this and pilot, which we did by saying, okay, let's work through our processes. Let's find the tools that we need. And we learned a lot about what we thought was going to work, and we made some changes. And then we started to build a scaling plan. I think for me, what was really valuable, again, being somebody who didn't have experience with AI, was being really clear and planning 3 times, I guess I would say, spending more time to prove out what you wanted to do and before you press go. So what's really key is communicating to the folks you have, bringing in people that have the expertise to teach and partner with your team, um, being really transparent about it, especially with a team who's you're talking about completely changing the work that they do, even if conceptually folks understand it's exciting and it's something new to learn. It can feel scary. Um, anyway.
So one of the things which you talked about was there's the automation side and there's the process side.
Yeah.
Talk to me about it because a lot of times we're in a validated environment. We have SOPs, we have things which are already ingrained in the nature
Mm,
of how we do it. This
right.
was a way in which you were actually challenging the norm because the way you're doing it is not the same as way it was before. So walk
Mm,
me through how did you make that change happen? How did you bring stakeholders together to make that
sure.
process change happen?
Sure. So I'll talk about automated testing because that's probably the most complex one, right? So what we had to do was after we did a proof of concept with some technical folks to figure out, okay, what tools do we need? What do we need to build? What do we need to qualify to go from manual testing, which follows one process, to automated testing? So once we did the technical work, we then got a cross-functional group together to say, all right, well, how does this impact our processes, right? So have to make sure that wherever we essentially just went through a process of about 17 SOPs around how we test and deploy, and sat down with the team and talked through what were the steps and to demonstrate that we still had the same controls, right? So whether you're automated testing, you're writing code, right? The script is code, and the process for creating that script is a technical process versus manually writing test cases, but you still have to have the same controls around it. You have to have a test strategy. You have to have a clear picture of the scope of the testing and why you defined it a certain way. You have to have traceability to requirements. So we essentially went through the development process and talked through where the automated testing sat in the process and updated our procedures. We also worked closely with quality to make sure that we understood, I understood deeply in the manual testing world what audit deliverables look like, what auditors are looking for. We also went through with our head of quality and team to understand in the world of automated testing, the outputs are different, right? The deliverables are different. So how do you tell the same story that the automated tests are traced to requirements, we have the objective evidence we need when it looks a little different, well, not just a little, but quite different than manual testing. So it really was stepping through the processes with the cross-functional team and with quality to ensure that everything that we had put together, one, we wrote the right controls in our procedures, and two, that we qualified the new tools that we needed to use for the automated script. So it was as simple and as complicated as getting the right 6 people together over a period of weeks to go through the process. We did that multiple times. We had an initial session to go through what it would look like. And then as we got closer to starting to scale, we went through again, looked at all the objective evidence. So it was, I would say, about 6 weeks or so of process review and refining before we finalized it. Does that make sense? Does that answer your
Yeah,
question?
absolutely. Yeah, fantastic. No, thank you. Christine, I'm going to pivot a little bit
Sure.
differently and ask you, as you start to recruit people into your team,
Mm.
what do you tell them? Why should they join Endpoint and why should they join your group?
Wow. You're the best group. I think I think we're on the precipice of a really interesting phase in technology, right? In services enabled software, right? And I'm going to say automation and AI again, but again, for me, having been around quite a long time, I think coming to this organization, you have the chance not just to do something that matters and develop software, in the industry that we are in, which feels good, like we're doing something with purpose, as I said before, but we are starting, like our developers are starting to work in with AI. Testing again is learning a whole new skill set. So I think we are starting to do things that are, going to stretch people, going to teach people in terms of tech and give them a lot of exposure to AI, and not just in the concept of, but really seeing us go through an idea of AI and seeing it transform how we deliver. So I think just the exposure to the new tech, as it were, which is like new tech in almost 2026. I think for my team, that's important, right? The tech folks in technology tend to want to learn new things and get exposed to new things. So I think we're in a neat place where we have to continue to do things in a highly regulated environment, but we get to try cool new stuff as well. And I think I'm starting to see some real excitement in the team about that. And again, I think we have a lot of people here who care a lot and have a lot of domain experience and can really bring a lot of that to bear. And we've hired some really cool folks that have taught me a lot in terms of AI. So it's a really neat place to be to sort of put those two things together. So I think it's a really exciting time for anyone in our space, but particularly the technical folks. I think they're starting to have some fun with this.
Lots of fun to be had.
Yeah.
And as you start to bring these teams together, and we have our cultural values. Is there any
Mm.
particular value which appeals to you a lot more than others? What you've said, mission driven, passionate all the time. But what would you say
Yeah,
are?
I think oh, it's oversaid, but accountability and ownership and just feeling ownership for whatever's in front of you every day. And I don't know if this is an endpoint value, so you can edit this out if I'm wrong. But curiosity is something that I just think you have to be interested. You have to be curious. You have to want to solve a problem. You have to be interested in, and I think curiosity is something that is really important, right? We are changing a lot, and we're asking our teams, even though again they get it big picture, it's their days are changing, their jobs are evolving, which we know is exciting and good, but you've got to be curious, right? You've got to be open to say, I've never done that before, but let me give it a shot. So curiosity is something I that comes to mind first. And we always preach accountability and ownership. Um, but I would sort of press on curiosity if that's sort of key if you want to be successful here.
Yeah, no, it's great. Uh, what does Christine do outside of Endpoint? What's fun?
What do
What
I do
you
that's
know?
fun? Oh, well, I live by the beach. So even though I'm outside of Boston and it's very, very cold here, I love being by the ocean. I read a ton. I have one daughter who I will insert into every conversation I can. So, she's away at college and home now for the holidays. So what I'm doing right now is decorating and menu planning and things like that. But, family, time outside here at the beach, that's what comes to mind.
Yeah, no, it's wonderful. As you said, we have a mission-driven purpose here, and you're bringing lots of people together. It's kind of an exciting place with all of this AI and automation, but I think you're putting a good realistic spin on how do you get it done within the
Yeah.
constructs of a validated industry. As you look forward to anything for management, what do you like in Jennifer and me doing here, and what do you think we should do better? How do we?
You want to
Uh,
record that? No, I think a couple things come to mind. Jennifer, I mentioned Jennifer and I have known each other a very long time, and I'm thrilled to be able to work for her again. She brings just she's obviously brings a steadiness and an empathy and and just, she's a people person, I would say. And also, she pushes us and she expects a lot from us, which I love. So I think we've got a really strong leadership team here. It's been a lot of change, right? In the last year and a half. I've only been here a year and a half. And um, it's pretty exciting to sit around a table like we did last week and just see the folks that you're solving these problems with and you're partnering with, on where we're going. I think what I've really appreciated from you is really the shots and the vision around AI, right? That is something I've learned a lot about, and I keep saying that because it's true. And I think you've really pushed, pulled, inspired us to think bigger than where we are and imagine some things that, I couldn't have imagined a year and a half ago. So I think between you and Jennifer, I think are really a nice complementary pair. And I value both what you both have brought. So yeah, it's exciting. I'm really exciting. I'm glad to talk to you this time of year because I'm starting to work with my team and plans for next year. We've done some reviews of what we've done in 2025. So it's an inspiring time to have reflected on some of that and start to think about what's next.
No, Christine, it's been an amazing journey here for the last year, and really thank you for all what you do for us, and thank you for this
Sure.
very engaging discussion. So really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thanks.